Hi there, I'm Derek Rydall, and I'm about to have a productive conversation with Mike Vardy.
Welcome to A Productive Conversation. I'm Mike Vardy, and I'm joined by Derek Rydall on this episode. It's a deep conversation. Get ready because we go deep into the ideas of balance. We talk about what productivity is. We talk about abundance and its meaning. And again, I was really excited to bring Derek on the program because he is a transformational leader. He's also the best-selling author of multiple books, including Emergence, 7 Steps for Radical Life Change. We talk about that book as well as his book, The Abundance Project. He spent 20 years dedicated to guiding individuals through the profound shifts happening in our rapidly changing planet and on our rapidly changing planet. He has spent 20 years dedicated to guiding individuals through the profound shifts happening on our rapidly changing planet, showing them how to tap into their inner technologies to evolve their humanity, become irreplaceable, and make a bigger impact. He has overcome some of the most profound personal hardships. He touches on that during the opening of this episode. This includes divorce, the loss of a fortune, and the heartbreaking death of his son, which we didn't get into, and you can explore that on his website, of course. But what he's done is he's built a global coaching platform that helps hundreds of thousands of people live their greatest life. We can go into more about Derek, of course. He's a consultant. He's coached top executives at Fortune 500 companies, and he has worked with celebrities, media professionals, Oscar and Emmy winners, so on and so forth. But I want to go on and go forth into this conversation. So without further ado, here's my conversation, and a productive one at that, with Derek Rydall. Derek, thanks so much for taking the time to join me today. Really appreciate it. During the pre-chat, we're kind of like, here's where the reason I want to chat with you is a lot of alignment in many of the kind of areas around productivity or productiveness, as I like to say, and managing your relationship with time. For those that don't know much of your story, and you share a lot, you share quite a bit of it just on your website alone. The journey to where you are now, which has been extensive, where was the most pivotal part of your journey in terms of kind of leading you into the direction that you've kind of found yourself in at this point in life, in your journey through time?
Yeah, without going into the whole story, like you said, they can see it in my website, maybe read in my book, but I'll give you a brief history. Like a lot of people, I spent many years trying to improve myself and improve my life. Work harder, work smarter, be more productive, or attract the things I want. But basically just a journey of improving myself. And what I improved after many, many years of self-improvement was my ability to describe and understand why my life was so messed up. So I could tell you exactly there's a lot of therapy involved in my self-improvement. And I realized that it was such a struggle to always improve and improve and improve. And eventually it drove me actually to become addicted to drugs and alcohol, to almost die from an overdose. And I took that as a sign that I just needed to work smarter, rather than harder. And so, I began to do that, and things got better for a while. And then I was an actor at the time, and I was doing a film in Jamaica, and everything was falling apart again. And I prayed to get lost from everything. And if you're a praying person, be careful what you pray for, because you might actually get it. And I went scuba diving or diving in a coral reef, and I got lost. And I got stuck in this coral reef, and I basically nearly drowned. And I had a moment where I knew I was going to drown, I was going to die. And I had a moment of just surrender. I just had to let go. And in that moment, there was a flash of awareness. And I saw that this guy I'd been trying to fix and change and heal and improve and make him more productive and better was a fictional character. He was an amalgamation of societal pressures and peer pressure and parental fantasies and all the ideas of what I should be and what I had to do. But there was another guy there, another version of me that that was already whole and was already complete. And so he could not be improved upon, nor did he need to be fixed in any way. And it's hard to explain the experience of this, but it was something cracked open in me, and it was utterly and completely life reversing and life changing. And in the next moment, I was standing outside the coral reef on top of this coral that I couldn't see from where I was trapped down underwater in the coral, surrounded by fire coral and spiked coral. And, I couldn't get out, didn't know how to get out, but somehow I got out. And I still don't exactly know how. And I was looking at this coral reef, and it was a maze, and it was a metaphor. And I realized I'd been swimming through this maze my whole life, following all the brightly colored objects and basically gasping for air. And now it was there actually in 3D. But I was able to swim away. And I ended up pulling out of society. And my unique journey is I actually tried to become a monk and had an interesting monk journey, fasting and silent and freaked out, and broke into the monk's kitchen to steal food in the middle of the night. And very, very interesting journey of my monk life, which I won't go into right now. But basically, I discovered that the flip from my life was I discovered that just like in every seed in nature, there is a pattern. There is a perfect pattern of the oak in the acorn. And not only is it in the seed, but it's actually in the quantum field, and which we understand from quantum physics. It's there in potential. Or another analogy, your favorite music is playing right now, right here, but it's not, it's as if it doesn't exist unless you know what station it's on and you know how to tune the dial to the frequency of that station. And if you do, that station becomes manifest. You have a manifestation. The music is audible, it is tangible. But the truth is, like in quantum physics, it's already here. And so I discovered that this is both from a metaphysical and a physics standpoint. The oak is already there where the acorn is. The apple tree is already there where the apple seed is. And that the same is true for us, that there's a perfect pattern that's already planted within us. And that my efforts to try to go out and make it happen or achieve it or be more productive was as if I was an empty shell, an empty seed, trying to fill myself up or trying to go out and build an oak tree. And nowhere in nature is this how it works. And we are part of nature. Whether you believe in just nature and evolution or spirituality, it's all these fundamental principles. And as I understood this, I realized that most of my efforts to be more productive and to become something more were creating most of the resistance and the burnout and the overwhelm, and ultimately blocking me from the greater fulfillment. And as I flipped it around and I started from a place of I've already got everything. I've already got the perfect pattern and the intelligence and the mechanics to fulfill it. Like a gardener, let me treat my life more like a gardener or a farmer rather than taking a seed and trying to pull a tree out of it or add tree parts to it. Let me cultivate the right condition for that seed. And if you create the condition that is congruent with the seed, what is in the seed will naturally emerge. And that became a principle I coined called the law of emergence. And my life went from broken, literally nearly suicidal, to live, within about a year. First of all, I was ready to be evicted, and I turned my whole life around, made more money in a few days than I had in an entire year. And then within a year or two, I had my own home, had my business was thriving. And within a few years, I was basically financially independent, living the dream that I wanted to live, in love, engaged to be married. So my whole life just went, talk about productivity, talk about being productive, right? And one other piece I'll say, and then I'll turn it back to you, is what I understood was nature never needs a day planner because nature can never go against its own nature. Whereas human beings, because we have metacognition, we have the ability to think about what we're thinking about. We have the ability to create belief and identities and maps of reality that are not necessarily accurate, let's just say, often very distorted. So we can live in the matrices of our mind and because of different reasons think this is who we are or this is who we have to be. And if a seed, if an acorn thinks it has to be an apple tree because apples are where the business is at, that acorn will never become an apple tree, or it'll become a very bad oak tree. And so, so the thing is when we're acting against our nature, we are alone. There is no help. There is nothing we can do to actually thrive in a sustainable way. So that for me, I discovered the key was get back in touch with what I'm really made of, what I'm really made for, and then find a way to bring my life and my environment into alignment with that. And that's the most efficient and effective and high leverage approach to maximizing, greater expression, productivity, fulfillment, etc.
Derek, as
You
you
break that all down.
yeah. But as you were talking about it, I couldn't help but think of the story of Tom Shadyac, the director, and he,
I do.
very,
Yeah.
there's echoes of that there, right? You know what I mean? And it gets me thinking, why in the world do we feel the need, like this external thing? I think it's external forces to, for lack of a better term, although it's probably not a well-placed metaphor because salmon swim upstream to survive, right? But we feel like we're swimming against the current. Like what leads us to that? Because you broke free from the sounds of it, you broke free of it in that manner of speaking. But what is the pull towards that, or the push towards that you feel?
Towards swimming up the current,
swimming against, going against the grain, like going against the grain of ourselves, so that we're going towards the grain of what is expected, for lack of a better term.
Yes. And every creature is designed for different things, and evolutionarily has evolved to be adapted to its particular environment, and is really a microcosm of the macro that it evolves in. So there's different reasons, and as humans, we are anti-fragile, which many of your listeners probably understand, which means we are designed to grow through challenge. We are target-seeking, adaptive creatures, meaning we are designed and adapted to have a target, and a target that requires that we stretch and that we are challenged. And as a result of that, it activates an evolutionarily adaptive response within us, and we get stronger and we activate more potential. So we are designed to do hard.
Mm-hmm.
We are designed to do difficult. That's not the same as suffering per se, although the Dalai Lama once said, what do you wish for America? I wish for them more suffering. But what he really meant is I wish for them a greater ability to embrace challenge and not be like entitled children who get everything handed to them and their clothes warmed up in the dryer before they go out on the cold winter day. That we have to, even the fact that we live in air-conditioned and heated environments has created an atrophy of our capacity and our resilience. And as a result, now we're doing ice baths and saunas because we're trying to activate immunal responses. And so there's all of this potential within us that is only activated through challenge. Or there are many creatures in the forest, the jack pine, that without a forest fire, it will fail to thrive. It will not release its progeny, and the species would die. So it needs a forest fire to burn and melt the glue and open the seeds. So that's one thing. So we are driven towards challenge. The difference is going against ourselves versus the challenge required to be in integrity with ourselves. It's the hardest thing. We don't need to add challenge. The hardest thing there is to know yourself and to thyself be true. And this is like the OG personal development principles, the Oracle of Delphi. The number one thing was know thyself. If we just get that right, we'd be a lot further. Because if you don't know yourself, you cannot be yourself. And if you don't be yourself, you are working against yourself. You are swimming upstream against yourself. And that's a challenge we are not adapted for. That's a challenge that breaks us down, burns us out, causes compulsive behaviors, addictive behaviors, and all kinds of sublimation and the craziness that we see. We become fragmented from ourselves. We pull energy from the cells of our body, and then we pull energy from other dimensions of our life, relationships, and other things. And so you see a person who's successful in one area and they're falling apart everywhere else. That's a person who's going against their nature. We're not adapted for that. That's a recipe for disaster. But when we know who we really are and what we really stand for and what we're really made for, that is the kind of challenge that is heroic. That is the hero and heroine's journey. And that is hard. That's hard enough.
Well, yeah.
But that's the kind of challenge that makes us stronger and smarter and more resilient and all those good things.
Well, Emerson, the quote that I couldn't help think about when you were talking about this is, to be yourself in a world that's constantly trying to make you something else is the greatest accomplishment. Right?
Yes.
And that leads me to
talk. There's a saying by Howard Thurman.
Yep.
It was Dr. King's teacher and minister. And he said, do not ask what the world wants. Ask what makes you come alive and do that. Because what the world needs are people who have come alive.
And this leads me to talk about abundance, because, I'm not a fan of the word enough in terms of like it being thrown out there, almost like willy-nilly, like without thought. I mean, I prefer the term plenty. Because of the nature of the fact that, what is plenty? Well, plenty is subjective depending on the person. But when you think about the term productive and its evolution over time, it now means the power or quality to produce, especially in abundance. And we talked about before we hit record the idea of quantity and quality. And my belief is that productivity is kind of broken in that we are focusing on the quantity form of abundance. And I want to hear your thoughts on the idea of abundance from where you're coming from, because I think there are, again, it's like a definition. I was a recent podcast interview, which we'll link to in the show notes, is the idea of respect. Well, people conflate respect with honor and things of that nature, right? When I was talking to Justin Jones Fosu about this, it's like, people are either misrepresenting what a word is or believing it to be one thing when it's actually another. So to you, what does abundance mean?
Yeah, and words evolve over time, but I love etymology, not entomology.
Etymology, yes.
One's bugs and one's words. I love studying the nature of the origin of words. There's a lot to learn in that, because word is logos, is a vibration, is a frequency, is an energy. And so it's very powerful. Your word is very powerful. So yes, and I even have a book called The Abundance Project. So it's a very deep conversation. But I do want to talk about, like you said, the difference between productivity, meaning quantity, versus a quality. So remind me to get back to that if I forget. But yeah, to me, abundance, first and foremost, is not a quantity. It is a quality. And like for example, that analogy I used about the song that's playing right now. And if you tune into that frequency, that song becomes manifest. Now, if I tune into it, and then you tune into it, and then everybody tunes into it, does the song diminish over time? And if everybody turned their volume full up, do we lose sound? Does the sound run out? Does the song run out? No, in fact, it's amplified and it's magnified, potentially without limit. That's the true nature of abundance. Abundance is vibrational, energetic, or spiritual. It's consciousness. It's a state of being. It's the fact that my mind has the capacity for infinite thoughts and ideas of inspiration, of innovation, of progress without limit. Now, whatever that is, that's abundance, but it's not a quantity. It's a quality. As the Bhagavad Gita says, take abundance from abundance and abundance still remains. And so love, if you understand the nature of love, if I just give you all my love, if I just keep sharing all my love, at the end of the day, the end of the year, do I have more love or less love? More love. If I'm a teacher and I'm teaching the subject I'm passionate about at the beginning of the year, by the end of the year, have I run out of that subject? Have I no more of that in me? Or am I overflowing with the ideas and the energy of that subject? That is abundance. Abundance is infinite, unlimited. And when you understand the true nature of it and the true source of it, which is within us and everywhere, and you begin to live from that place, the love, the peace, the joy, the beauty, the freedom, the inspiration, the creativity, the generosity, the blessing, when you start circulating, and that's another key of abundance. The key to abundance is the law of circulation. The more you circulate, the more you have. And circulation isn't just getting or giving. The law of circulation is you must have it to give it. So you have to take a breath in, fill yourself up, and know you have it. And you cannot keep what you don't give away. You have to breathe out. You have to release it. And finally, you cannot sustain what you don't receive. So you have to have, you have to give, and you have to receive. It's a circuit. And when there's a complete circuit, there's circulation. And wherever there's more circulation, there's more life, more growth, more green, more abundance, and it's infinite. So that to me is in a very brief paragraph, the nature of abundance. Maybe I don't know if you want to ask me a question about that before I go back to productivity and
Well,
abundance.
I do, because it led me right to thinking about, like, if you're doing things that are selfish, like in other words, self-serving, right? You end up, if you serve others and you're doing it in a way, like there's this circuitous path, right? Like if you're doing the right things and you're serving yourself and you're doing it right, you can end up serving others in the process, right? Like if you so when I work with people, occasionally I'll say, like, well, why should I do my things first? I'm like, well, if you're doing the right things of your things, then you're going to help others in the process. So you're doing them a disservice by not doing that. So that came to mind, but it also leads to this idea, and I know we're going off a bit of on a beaten path here before we circle back to productivity, but will and will.
All connected.
Yeah, no, but that's just it. So will and willpower and willfulness and all that stuff. We hear, for those that listen to like some of the more, the idea of willpower, and willpower doesn't work. Dr. Benjamin Hardy wrote a book about willpower not working.
Yeah.
Link to it in the
Where
show notes.
there's a will,
yeah,
there's a wall. Where there's willingness, there's a way.
And so let's dive into that a bit, because as a big Green Lantern fan who draws on the power of will, and I love the idea of the spectrum and all that stuff, what do you feel the role of will is in all of this? And maybe in the role of, you would have had to pull yourself out of this. There would have had to be a willfulness to do that, right?
Yeah, I would call it, there's definitely a nature of agency. Well, first thing I would say is there is no free will until you have expanded awareness and you can see what's really running you. Because mostly people are afraid the robots are going to replace us. We've already been replaced. Most people are just running programs. And so you first have to see what is the programs that are running you. Because if you don't have that, you don't have free will. You have what I call free won't. You have resistance. You are just reactive. But once you do, then you have the beginning of choice. And it's again about what we talked about. It's about having a deeper connection to, at the most basic level, it's the survival instinct, right? That when you get back in touch with your will to survive, people have been able to overcome almost anything. And then the next level is beyond the survival instinct, there is a much higher instinct, which is the serving instinct, the creative instinct, the instinct to flower and to flourish, not merely survive, not merely not die, right? To be or not to be, that is the question. That's fundamental. But then there is the next level. That's like once the Maslow's hierarchy of needs kind of part of you has been met, then you get into purpose. And the purpose of the seed is not merely to not die, or the flower to not die. It's to flower and to flourish and to release its fragrance, or for the apple tree to release its fruit. There's something we are here to become and something we are here to bring and to deliver. And that is the deepest will. And so when you can get in touch with that, then, like I said before, you could call that the true self, the seed of purpose or potential planted in the soil of your soul that was there even before you were planted in your mother's womb. And when you can get in touch with that and you have a connection to that, then you hit that wall, you hit that obstacle, you hit that crisis, that challenge. Now you have the capacity of another level of will, that you are living for something bigger than survival. Survival will only get you so far. When you're living for, you can access the will and the willingness to live for something even bigger than yourself. Now you are in the miracle zone. Now you're in the quantum leap zone. Now you're the 90-pound mother that can lift a 3,000-pound car off of her child. Now you are a person who can actually change the course of history, that can save a culture, that can do a this, that can whatever. Whereas if it's just survival, you can't enter into that level of productivity, which means to produce something that is truly purposeful, not merely more widgets that end up in a trash heap a year from now, right? So that's how I think of will. There's the first level of will, which is to survive, and there's the second level, which is to be of service, to have a higher purpose. And that's what I believe we are ultimately designed for. And when that's your target, then the evolutionarily adaptive response is to pull out a level of excellence and greatness and genius, the likes of which you cannot even imagine you're capable of right now. And mere survival alone will never activate it, will not make a big enough demand on that capacity in you. But the will of service, of a higher purpose, and the confronting of hard challenges in order to achieve it, that will call out of you greatness.
Now let's circle back to productivity. The idea of which again, this all feeds nicely into,
it ties right into it.
It does. So, again, before we hit, I was just going to say, go ahead. Go for it. Go for it. No, this is great because again, the role of quality and quantity. There's a mismatch here. We live in a world that's again, the cranking of widgets. How many things can we make as opposed to, or do, or what have you, versus the quality of those things. So let's dive into that.
Yeah. And so let me just say that, my journey has been, I'm a unique creature in the way that I can go as transcendent and spiritual and metaphysical, but I'm also, at the end of the day, how do we get some what done? How do we actually create something and move that, find that lever big enough that I can move the world. And I think that's an important balance and integration. So in the universe, if you look around you, you look at nature, it doesn't have just enough leaves on the trees. It has more leaves than you can ever count. If you look in the sky, there's not just enough stars. There's more stars than you can ever count. If you look at all the beaches of the earth, more grains of sand than you can ever count. So everywhere you look is an unimaginable quantity. But again, what I was saying before is it's coming from a deeper truth, which is the true nature of infinity, which is it's not material. You could call it spiritual, you could call it energetic, but its nature is infinite, which means it has no beginning and no end. When that breaks into time and space and expression and experience, it breaks out into quantity. But the real source and the real substance of it is quality. And even if you look at, with all of your striving, you're trying to get this job or make this much more money or get this much more done. Or if you look at whatever your goals are and you say, well, why do you want to do that? So that I can make more money. And then why do you want the money? So I can have the house or whatever. Why do you want the house? So that you will always, always, always get down to a quality of being. It's like the farmer goes to the guy goes to the Zen farmer and says, I need a job. Can you give me a job? And the Zen farmer says, I'll give you a job, but I won't pay you. What do you really need? He's like, well, I need the money. Can you give me some money? He's like, I'll give you the money, but you can't spend it. What do you really need? He's like, well, I need some food. Can you give me some food? He's like, okay, I'll give you the food, but you can't eat it. What do you really need? And he kept asking until the guy was finally like, well, if I had the job and made the money to get the food, to eat it, and the guy took a breath. He's like, then I would just finally, I could rest. I could be at peace. And the farmer's like, yes, that is what you need. Unfortunately, I can't give that to you because you've already got it. You have to give it to yourself. And so the point was, in all of our striving and all of our quantitative productivity to get somewhere, what we're really trying to get to is a state of being, a feeling. The only thing we want is a better feeling. And the only thing we're afraid of is a worse feeling. So that's just to put that in, that's one piece, is that we're all going for a state of being. That doesn't mean we don't need to eat and all this stuff, but the fundamental idea, as it says, Jesus said, man does not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceeds out of the mouth of God. All the great mystics and philosophers have been trying to tell us that yes, we're material beings and we need material things, but what really fulfills us, what really we're after, is a deeper sense of meaning, a deeper sense of purpose, a deeper sense of connection and fulfillment. And if you look at our world right now, what is happening? We are, by the WHO standard, in a loneliness epidemic, in a meaning crisis, and in a polarization and fragmentation that has broken our connection from ourselves and each other like almost never before. All of those, meaning, purpose, connection, these all of those things fundamentally is what we need the most, is what we're after the most. So when it comes back to, let's say, productivity, when people are like thinking that scheduling and structures, and a lot of people can be averse to that, they think it's about how do I pack the most things into every minute and every hour to get the most done. That is not the purpose of a schedule or a structure. The purpose of a schedule and a structure, the original root purpose of it, is to organize what matters most. Again, the purpose of a structure and a schedule is, and ultimately what productivity is not to get and jam in as much stuff as possible. It's to organize and ultimately be true to what matters most. And what matters most is that which gives us the deepest sense of meaning, the deepest sense of connection, the deepest sense of purpose. You could add the deepest sense of love, ultimately the deepest sense of fulfillment, and a sense of what we value and what we are here to, the value we're here to bring. That's all. If you look at your body, the structure of your body, the spine and all that, it's not there to jam as many parts in as possible. It's there to put in the things that matter most, to protect them, and to put them in the right order and the right sequence. And that's ultimately the highest level of productivity. It's not how much did you get done. It's did you get clear on what you most deeply value, what matters most, what you're really made of and made for, what it gives you greatest sense of meaning and purpose, connection, love, and a sense of service. And have you organized your life and your day so that those things are organized in priority and that you're giving those things the time that they need? When that is how you organize your life, when that is the target you're aiming at, then you begin to come back to your own nature. And like nature itself, you create the ripe and the ready conditions for the natural emergence of that seed of purpose and power and potential and a level of abundance and a level of brilliance that you cannot even imagine yet, because it's been locked up in this seed of, I'm just an empty shell, or I need to, all the stuff we talked about. So to me, that's the real nature and purpose of productivity, is to be more of who we really are, to have a deeper sense of purpose, meaning, connection, service, etc.
So before I let you go, where does someone start with this? Because there's people listening to this right now that are like, I want to get there. I want to get started, but it may seem overwhelming. I mean, just like you felt when you were swimming in the coral and couldn't find your way out, the metaphorical coral that people are swimming in. They're like, how do I get out? How do I get started? So what are your thoughts on that?
Well, the first thing is they can listen to this episode over and over again and take some notes, because that's the start. And yeah, and obviously, I mean, I have podcasts and I have my website, and they can go there and get all kinds of free trainings where I talk about this. But again, if you resonate and understand that the number one most important job each of us has, that only you were given, is to be the guardian of your flame, to be the gardener of the seed of your heart or your soul. You've been given a seed of you, and you're the number one guardian or gardener or farmer, whatever term works. And your job is to know what that seed is and to do whatever you can to cultivate the conditions for it to flourish. That's your number one job. And if you can understand that, even if you have to go to a job, in any kind of job, or you're an entrepreneur, understanding what that is first so that you can bring more of that to whatever you do. That's the fundamental, again, with all of this productivity craze and all the technological expansion, has it made us more fulfilled? The smartphone that promised to make us more productive, did it? Really? No. We have a lot of smartphones and stupid people. Okay. And we even know now, when the phone is even near you, your cognitive abilities are diminished. So there's so much more there. So just understand that it's been a bit of a Faustian bargain. And the most powerful and most important thing we can do right now, especially in the rise of the machines in the technological, high-tech, low-touch world, is get back in touch with what matters to you. What do you most deeply value? What gives you the greatest sense of meaning and the greatest sense of connection? And if you really could be who you really want to be, not who you think you have to be or should be, begin to put some time into discovering what that is. And if you really could make the contribution, even if you're retired or even if you want to be retired, it doesn't matter. You're never retired from making the contribution you were made for. Because again, it's not quantity. It's not about a thing necessarily, but the importance of taking time to get back in touch with those fundamental qualities and values of what gives you the greatest sense of meaning and purpose and connection and all of that, and lights you up and makes you come alive and makes life worth living. That's fundamental. That's your compass. That's your North Star. Then you can look at all the things you're doing and all the things you think you need to do and ask, one, how can I bring more of this to what I'm doing? And then number two, which is a little more difficult, but if you want to be the most productive, the 10X principle, the Pareto principle, you have to understand and have the courage to let go of the things that aren't aligned with that qualitative truth about yourself, what you deeply value, what gives you meaning, what gives you greatest purpose, what makes you come alive, what you are willing to live for and even fight for and maybe even die for. When you're connected to that, then you can start to prune the tree of the things that are pulling energy and time. And even if you're doing less, but you're doubling down on what has the greatest meaning and the greatest impact for you, that's how that tree in the new season goes from being pruned to blossoming bigger and more fruitful and more flowering than ever before.
Derek,
and I know that's difficult, but yeah.
Derek, this has been a great conversation. Thanks so much for taking the time today to join me. Where can people keep up with your work and pick up the books that you've got out there and learn more about you?
Definitely. Well, we talked about the Emergence. You can get Emergence, and the Abundance Project, wherever books are sold, Amazon, that kind of stuff. And you can go to DerekRydall.com, DerekRydall.com, and get all kinds of free trainings there, as well as my podcast, Emergence, where there's hundreds of more trainings. that you'll find to help you. And there's many on being more productive, effective, efficient within the context of what we're talking about today.
Derek, thanks for having a productive conversation with me today.
Thank you, brother.
Thanks to Derek for joining me today, and thanks for listening. Again, as he said, go back and listen to this episode and take notes. I was taking a copious amount of notes as we had this discussion, and I know you'll get a lot out of it on repeat listens. By the way, to listen repeatedly, subscribe to the show. That way you won't miss a single episode of what's to come and can easily re-listen to episodes that have struck your fancy or struck a chord. You can do that wherever you get your podcasts, including where you're getting this one right now. It's also a great way to support the show. You can also get the show notes right there in the podcast apparatus or app that you're using. And if you want to go to the website to check out what we talked about, get links, all that fun stuff, you can do that as well. MikeVardy.com/podcast581. If you're looking to support the show in another or different way or both ways, check out the sponsors you heard mentioned during our conversation today. They kind of came and went as we had this discussion. You can go to MikeVardy.com/podcast sponsors. I don't want them to go too far away from you though, so go there, click on any of the links that resonate with you, and that way they know that we sent you. That's it for this episode of A Productive Conversation. Coming up, of course, we've got a Flashback Friday episode. You don't want to miss that. And again, as a subscriber, when you subscribe to the show, you can also check out the PM Talks episodes that we bring forward to you every single month. So until next time, I'm Mike Vardy, the host of A Productive Conversation, reminding you to stop doing productive and start being productive. See you later.